On March 31st, 1906, the Intercollegiate Athletic Association of the United States is founded and would later be named the NCAA. Back when college sports was on the brink of collapsing, football was so brutal that it claimed multiple lives, and the future of intercollegiate athletics was in question. It was time for bold action and leadership to change college athletics and how the United States viewed college athletics. Today we're going to discover how President Teddy Roosevelt intervened and saved football, creating the first steps for what would now become the NCAA. And we're going to take that journey of the history of college sports and uncover the pivotal moments that shaped the NCAA today on Daily Sports History.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide, as you daily learn more about sports history, increasing your sports knowledge as we dive into the history of the NCAA. So to understand how the NCAA started, we have to go way back to the 1800s. As before 1850, college sports was largely informal and just recreational, and there were sports not even invented yet. Football and basketball, two of the NCAA's biggest sports today, were not invented by this time. And students would play activities and have their own type of games that are not even lost to history. And the first organized sports club was at Yale University in 1843, followed by Harvard the following year, where they each had a boat club. And these clubs laid the groundwork for sports teams connected to their colleges. And in 1852, Harvard would face off against Yale in a rowing regatta. This was a historic race on Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire, and it marked the birth of intercollegiate sports. Harvard won, sparking a rivalry that has become a cornerstone of America in both athletics and beyond. Now, the race was student-organized to attract public attention, which essentially is the same reason we have sports to this day. Then in 1859 was the first intercollegiate baseball game played against Amherst and William College. By 1870, college teams were playing extensive schedules between each other, and by 1879, the first intercollegiate baseball league was formed. Now, football followed close behind when they played their first intercollegiate football game, which we actually covered on a previous episode, where Rutgers took on Princeton in 1869. In what we wouldn't call football today, it resembled more soccer with a lot more kicking, but it was the beginning of football. A track and field intercollegiate event first occurred in 1873. Featuring athletes from Amherst, Cornell, and McGill University. So you can see as the years go on, more and more sports got played at colleges and were playing other colleges more and more. But by 1905, football was starting to rule over all the other sports, where college football and baseball became the mainstays. And by 1905, football was a brutal sport. It had 18 deaths and 149 serious injuries reported that year alone. The game resembled something more of what we see rugby today, with match formations and gang tackling, with little protection for the athletes. And when the death of a Union College player, Harold P. Moore, happened in November of 1905, the public called for reform. Many colleges like Columbia and NYU just canceled their football programs completely, while others switched over to the game of rugby. But there was one man that wanted to change what was going on. In steps President Theodore Roosevelt, who viewed football as a way to build character, as he had been watching his sons play. and had seen how it became more physical, more vulgar, and had poor sportsmanship. So he held a summons at the White House where he invited representatives from Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, including legendary coach Walter Camp, to discuss the rules of football. And the goal was to eliminate unsportsmanlike contact and reduce the violence and hopefully the danger of playing this great game. Well, from this one event, nothing actually happened, but it put into motion things that were coming, and the group issued a statement condemning the rough play. And following the summit, an NYU chancellor convened a meeting of 13 colleges in December 1905 to discuss the future of football. And this led to a larger gathering of over 60 schools later that month, where they officially founded the Inter-Athletic Association of America to help put into place rules that could help make the game safer. And by 1906, new rules were introduced, including the forward pass, neutral zones between the offense and defensive lines, and stricter regulations to reduce injury. And the IAAUS selected Palmer E. Pierce, a brigadier general and former athletic director of West Point, as their first president. And he served until 1913. And would come back in 1917 to serve for another 12 years. And he emphasized home rule, which allowed members to institutions to maintain independence while adhering to standardized rules. And despite initial hesitations for some schools like Yale and Harvard and Princeton, they actually expanded quite rapidly from 39 schools initially in 1906 to over 150 by 1931. And today, there's over 1,100 schools that are part of the NCAA. Now, the reason why there was some hesitation was institutions were reluctant due to travel costs and existing conference affiliations that they had gone through in the early years. However, with President Roosevelt backing this, it gave it credibility and influence that many schools were able to follow. And in the early years, students with faculty supervision continued to manage the athletic events, giving it a more decentralized nature. And by 1910, the IAAUS changed its name into the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, marking the first steps to become what we know today, as it was rebranding to reflect the growth and influence of intercollegiate sports on a national scale. And by 1921, they held their very first national championship, where they held the National Collegiate Track and Field Championship. And this would be a stepping stone for them to put on even more of their sports national championships, which, as of now, going through March Madness, we know is huge in the sporting world. And they continue to add other sports, and they had added basketball. In 1939 was the very first NCAA basketball championship. Now, the NCAA to continuously change rules and allow to help the safety of the teams. And they changed their focus to lessen recruiting abuse, financial incentives for athletes, and focused on amateurism. And this focus continued to grow in the 1950s and 60s, creating new challenges for the NCAA as they centralized control for TV contracts and limited broadcasts to protect games attendance. Then in 1951, Walter Byers became the first executive director of the NCAA, transforming the organization into a powerful governing body. And he is the one that introduced the term student athlete to emphasize amateurism and shield the school from liability of athletes' injuries, and took control of the television rights and gave enforcement power to the NCAA to penalize schools for violations they had, and introduced the death penalty, which is a complete suspension of a program. And in 1973, they created different divisions, Division 1, 2, and 3, to allow the sports to decide which area they fit best into. Division 1 focused more on larger programs with televised sports, and Division 3 focused on smaller schools who wanted more flexibility with a lesser budget. And in 1985, they passed and academic reporting requirements and financial audits for athletic departments, as well as a drug testing policy, which really puts us into the modern age where academics is just as important as what's on the field. Where financial audits show how athletic departments really run from a financial standpoint, and drug testing really helped equalize the game, keeping players safe. But despite all the changes the NCAA has gone through, many skirt the rules or violate the rules. There have been death penalties put into place. There have been gambling issues. There have been issues across the college athletic world. But without this organization, we would not have the college sports that we love today. The NCAA transformed the sporting world when they were formed by giving a standardized rules and helping make the sporting world safe. That doesn't mean that deaths don't happen in NCAA. They do still to this day. They are much less and more commonly caused by medical situations that are unknown. But the NCAA is now at a crossroads where the schools have become more powerful, where name, image, and likeness has transformed the college sports world, and allowing players to get paid on top of their scholarships has helped players, but has put the schools and the NCAA in a tough situation where in the next 10 years is going to be a pivotal moment in these organizations that may change how college sports is perceived and even run to this day. I'm looking forward to the future, but it's going to be a bumpy ride. And hopefully the NCAA can look back on its history to continue to grow the sports that we love today. I want to thank you for listening to today's Daily Sports History. If you like this, make sure you follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you do not miss a single episode. And come back tomorrow for more Daily Sports History.